Let's go Dolphins! Behind the scenes, decisions are being discussed. Decisions that could mean the end of the Tua Tagovailoa era, the arrival of a surprising new starting quarterback, and potentially trigger a radical change in the front office and coaching staff. There's tension, there's pressure, and there are changes being considered that will leave fans furious, or finally hopeful again. But before we get into the details, and believe me, you'll want to know every single one, be sure to like this post if you're a true Dolphins fan. Not just someone who watches casually, I'm talking about those who have remained loyal to this team despite so many disappointments. If you're one of them, show it, and leave a comment saying, "Go Dolphins! We deserve better." Now, let me tell you what's really happening in Miami. As of now, the Miami Dolphins sit at 2-7 heading into Week 10 against the Buffalo Bills. A season that started with high hopes has turned into one of the most disappointing stretches in recent memory. Playoff hopes are basically gone. You would have needed to finish 10-7 to realistically have a shot in the AFC, and that's simply not happening. So the conversation is already shifting. When the inevitable E4 elimination shows up next to Miami in the standings, what's the next move? Here's where it gets juicy. A strong contingent of fans and analysts is calling for rookie 7th-round pick Quinn Ewers to take over as the starting quarterback once the team is mathematically eliminated. And honestly, it makes a ton of sense. The benefits are crystal clear. First, you protect Tua from further injury in a lost season. Second, and more importantly, you get a full December to evaluate what you have in Ewers. This is not just about testing a rookie for fun. This is about preparing for the future. If Ewers shows promise, you could be looking at your 2026 starter without having to spend big on a quarterback in free agency or reach for one in the draft. It's an opportunity to reset this franchise's direction at the most important position in football. And that's not all. Giving Ewers a chance also gives Mike McDaniel a chance, his first real opportunity to scheme around a QB who isn't Tua. If Ewers is more physically dynamic and less limited than Tagovailoa, what does McDaniel's offense actually look like when the full playbook is open? This December could be the defining stretch for both of them. McDaniel might not survive this season if things don't improve fast, but showing he can work with a different quarterback might just save his job, or at least boost his stock for another head coaching role elsewhere. Now, speaking of Greer, he should be gone. No sugarcoating it. Yet somehow, he's still pulling the strings. And now we're facing massive decisions with a front office that most fans have lost faith in. So when it comes to replacing him, one popular name among fans is Louis Riddick. But here's the deal. Hiring a media analyst who hasn't worked in a front office in years is the kind of flashy, short-sighted move that holds this franchise back. You want someone who's in the trenches, working the phones, negotiating, scouting, someone like Ed Dodds from the Colts or Chad Alexander from the Chargers. These are real football minds with experience, not just talking heads. And it doesn't stop there. The head coaching market is another storm waiting to break. If McDaniel is fired, some fans are pushing for names like Robert Saleh, Mike McCarthy, Jesse Minter, and Chris Shula. Saleh stands out as a top candidate, a defensive mind who could bring discipline and toughness to a unit that desperately needs it. McCarthy would bring veteran leadership and stability. Minter and Shula are intriguing young minds who could bring a fresh spark. The point is, there are options better suited than the current regime to lead this team forward. On the field, the offensive line is a mess. But here's the twist. Every starter is under contract next season. Patrick Paul, Jonah Williams, yes, he's been bad, but still under contract. Aaron Brewer, James Daniels, and Austin Jackson are all returning. That doesn't mean you ignore the position in the draft, but spending all 3 third-round picks on offensive linemen, like some fans have suggested, that's just not a smart use of assets. One name to watch, though, is Spencer Fano out of Utah. He's a solid target if Miami holds a high pick and passes on quarterback early. And what if they don't go quarterback in round 1? Trading back is firmly on the table. If Miami's picking at 3 and 2 QBs are already off the board, say Fernando Mendoza and Ruben Bain Jr., and you're not sold on the next guy, you absolutely take the call from a team like the Browns or Rams offering multiple firsts. That gives you the flexibility to load up on linemen, edge rushers, and defensive backs, the kind of depth that builds long-term success. Because if we're being honest, this is about more than just seeing what Quinn Ewers can do. This is about resetting the identity of the Miami Dolphins before it's too late. This franchise has been spinning its wheels for years, clinging to quarterbacks that don't elevate the team and coaches who can't adapt when things fall apart. If there's even a small chance that Ewers can be the answer, or at the very least give you something different to evaluate, it would be organizational malpractice not to find out now, in meaningless games, rather than wasting another season in limbo. Let's also talk about something that most of the national media is ignoring, the impact this QB decision has on the entire locker room. Players know when the season is over. They know when the guy under center isn't getting it done. And they also know when a young, hungry rookie might shake things up. Starting Ewers not only gives fans hope, it gives that locker room a spark. And that spark could change the entire trajectory of how we end this season and set the tone for the next. And look, even if Ewers struggles, which is very possible, you've at least made a decision based on information, not emotion or fear. You head into the 2026 offseason with data, with film, with clarity. Maybe he's not the guy. Maybe he is. Either way, you're better off knowing now than wondering what if while running it back with the same broken formula. That's what separates smart organizations from the rest. They evaluate early, they act decisively, and they don't double down on mistakes just because they're afraid of admitting them. Now let's pivot back to the coaching carousel, because that decision is going to go hand in hand with the quarterback situation. If the Dolphins clean house, and they should, hiring the right head coach becomes everything. Robert Saleh would be a statement. It would mean this team is done with finesse and ready to get physical again. Imagine a defense that isn't getting gashed on third down every week. Imagine a coach who can bring real accountability. It's been a long time since we've had that on the sideline. But if they don't want to go with a proven name like Saleh or McCarthy, a younger guy like Jesse Minter or Chris Shula could be the future. And yeah, the last name Shula carries some weight in Miami. That legacy might just be the push needed to reestablish pride in this team's identity. What matters is this. The next coach has to be someone who can build a culture, develop a young quarterback, and isn't afraid to take risks. Because we're past the point of safe hires. Safe is what got us here. Safe is what led to mediocrity. The fan base deserves better, and this offseason has to reflect that. Speaking of reflecting, let's look ahead to the draft. Right now, Miami sits with the 4th overall pick, and if the team keeps losing, they could slide into the top 3. If Ruben Bain Jr. or Fernando Mendoza are available, those are no-brainers. But let's say they're gone. What do? Reach on a questionable QB like Dante Moore or Ty Simpson? No way. That's where trading down becomes critical. Accumulate picks. Build the trenches. Get tougher in the front 7. Add physicality to the secondary. Stop building this team like it's a track meet and start building it like a playoff contender. And in that same draft, guys like Spencer Fano on the offensive line become real targets. He's already being projected as the top non-QB option for the Dolphins. And while I still think you don't use all 3 third-rounders on O-line, at least one of them should address that unit, maybe 2, depending on who's available. The key is balance, something Miami hasn't had in years when it comes to roster construction. On the financial side, Miami will have around $30 to $35 million in cap space, maybe a little more if they cut some veterans. That's not enough to go on a shopping spree, especially when you've got major holes at wide receiver, tight end, edge, cornerback, and safety. So expect cheap one-year deals, bounce-back candidates, and depth signings. You won't see Miami landing any blockbuster names unless some kind of restructuring miracle happens. And yes, Tyreek Hill is likely gone. The math doesn't lie. $36 million saved is just too much to pass up for a guy on the wrong side of 30. That means Jalen Waddle becomes WR1, and you need to find someone else to play opposite him. You also need a legitimate tight end threat and someone